Tyriece Simon.
I'm Elijah Jones. Very glad to be back on the show. What's the name of the show?
And this is MMA Renegade, man.
Hey man, give it up. Good show. Good
Thank
topics.
you. Thank you. Finally, we got a name for our show, man. We've been doing this for a
We
while
do.
now.
We do. We have a good name. We have a good name.
Now, this is a new program. It's a StreamYard, so it's going to be a little bit of a lag. We're still working on the kinks of this, so you may hear a split reaction from when I talk and when Elijah talks, but we're happy to be doing the show, finally.
It's been a
All
while.
right?
I was on vacation. I apologize.
Yeah, you've been going a lot, man.
Yeah, man. It's
Getting
been a
around,
couple months.
getting around.
Hey, regular guy.
So we're going to be recapping UFC 241, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic for the UFC heavyweight
Great.
title.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, Elijah. What was your impression of the card overall?
I think the fights that were on this card were great. Again, UFC is rolling out these stacked cards with it's showing that the depth pool of the fighters that they're showcasing from people who have maybe both are outside of the whole company as undefeated
Right.
fighters, and then they're coming into UFC and they're either losing to these well-trained fighters or who are either on losing streaks or they're stacking up and going making fighters who've been on the UFC roster for a while. So in my opinion, this was a phenomenal card from start to toe. We didn't get a lot of big names as if like we're used to in the past, but what we did see is a lot of rising stars and future promising stars for the UFC. And so that's why I could never complain about a card like this. I think it was a phenomenal card. What do you think?
I think it was a good card. I pretty much came in maybe the Romero your Romero and Costa fight. That's where I pretty much started at for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I went back later on to watch the later fights. You know, the Corey Sandhagen freelance fight we're going to talk about.
Good fight.
You know, Sadiq Youssef, that fight. Ian
Impressive
Heinisch.
fight.
But I pretty much
Good
started
fight.
at Yo Romero versus Costa.
Which
Which
is
is a
the
great fight.
fight for yeah, which is a phenomenal fight. First off, I mean, to be honest with you, just starting off with that fight alone kind of beats a couple other fights because that was truly the fight of the night. You had these
Yeah.
both guys slugging. I didn't think it was going to go the full 15 minutes. I don't think most of the 15 minutes. I don't think it is not to people who I said it right before the fight to my brother. We may see a cancellation because these guys are just so powerful. They're so creative when it comes to striking at sometimes. And one pushes forward, but the other can counter. It's just, you don't know. So when you get these two guys who are very similar forward or to kind of can knock you out in any position or any kind of stance, then you get a standstill. And we did get a standstill, but it was such a back and forth standstill that it was almost you don't get these fights too often.
Yeah.
You just catch these fights. These are the fights that kind of make the UFC as popular as it is because you're slugging and throwing. So I mean, great fight, truly great fight.
Yeah, and the event did well for itself. I believe it broke the gate for the UFC in California. You know,
Works for me.
I think it was sold out, 17,000 in Anaheim Stadium, arena.
It's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
So
It's a lot of money. I probably went to UFC.
did pretty well. I wonder how much of that goes to the main event or the co-main event.
I think, if I want to be honest with you, things started heating up with the main event card. I'm going to be honest with you. You had good fights on the undercard and the prelims. You had solid, good fights. But you had the opening was Ian Heinisch versus Derek Brunson. It ended up being not as it was in the first round because the pace slowed down very much. These guys had to get tired because the pace they pushed that first round was just crazy. And then after that, you saw the fights just pick up and pick up and pick up. You're getting these like spectacular performances. Not to say that prelims weren't, but you saw these like matches. I would say the main card is really what brought this together. Undercard was good, but the main card was what brought this together.
Well, no, that wasn't my question. My question was, I don't know if it was the main event or the co-main event that brought the attention to the crowd. You know,
I think it was. I think it was I think it was every fight after. I think it was every fight from Yoel Romero and up. I think the Youssef fight set the tone for the rest of the fights because it's so fast. I think Youssef and Benitez. I think that really set the pace. I think that really set the pace. The co-main event and the main event were great. I mean, don't get me wrong; those were the highest points of the night. But I think that card started. The main card started off very well with Youssef's fight.
Okay, so let me clarify even more. I'm saying
Please do.
what fight what fight in particular brought attention to this card? Was it the co-main event of
Thank you.
Pettis
Thank you.
versus
That's a
Diaz,
different question.
or was it Daniel Cormier versus Stipe? That's the question I'm really looking for.
That's the question you need to ask. You're asking me. You're like just saying, "Oh, I wonder what the co-main event." No. That's an opinion. Tell me what you ask me. What do you think? I want to say, in all honesty, the Diaz and the Pettis. The Diaz and the Pettis fight.
And I would agree.
It was everything I expected. However, the only thing is Anthony Pettis got injured in the fight, and when he gets injured in fights, you see it change. And so it was even though he was injured, he was still throwing. The guy was going. So I don't know. That Pettis and Diaz fight was just out of this world. Like it's at 170, but you look at them, you're like, nah, this is a 155 fight. This is a 155.
Right, and we're gonna get to all those fights. We're gonna get to Ian Heinisch. We're gonna get to Sadiq Youssef. We're gonna get to Romero Costa. We're gonna get to Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis. But we're gonna start with the main event. We're gonna work our way back. We're gonna start with Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title.
Great.
Now, Stipe Miocic defeats Daniel Cormier in the 4th round to TKO. It was 4 minutes in 4 minutes in the
I think it was
4th
9
round.
seconds. 4 minutes and 9 seconds.
4 minutes. Yes, 4 minutes and 9 seconds. What were your thoughts on that fight?
I thought it was a great fight, but the first 2 rounds, Cormier was just so dominant. I had to win because I was like, he can do this. This is the redemption story. He's the underdog right now. He can get his belt back. However, Cormier took him down in the first, hold him down and wear on him, and which I thought that was brilliant because it made him tired. But you saw the slight hesitation in Stipe until the 3rd round. And that's when you saw Stipe starting to land a little more, starting to put it together, starting to get a little bit more footwork. And then in the 4th round, he had back to back. I thought it was a great fight. I think Cormier, impressive performance because he was looking unstoppable until that 3rd round. Unstoppable.
Yeah.
It was really hard. Sorry, I didn't have to cut you off, but I found it really hard to believe that Stipe was winning these like him and tapping him, and it was just like, oh, how, like, you saw the wear by round 2. You saw the face of Stipe compared to the face of Daniel Cormier. The only thing that happened was Daniel Cormier started getting more tired.
Right.
What did you think?
Yeah, and I thought pretty much the same. Again, sorry, audience. This is a new program we're using. Still having little issues with technology, especially lagging issues. But we're working on it. I thought the fight was good. I thought if it didn't have Romero versus Costa, this would have been the fight of the night.
Agreed.
Stipe showed us he had the heart of a champion. Definitely made a difference in the 4th round, the 3rd round into the 4th round. What was interesting for me was it showed what DC's defense was like. I think DC's defense a little bit got exposed to where it's the first time I realized where his defense is not really putting his hands up. It's more or less reaching out to the opponent's hands and stopping him from attacking. And then he'll throw the short strikes in the inside. So to get in the inside, he'll hold the hands of the opponents, and then he'll come across with either a hook or uppercut or dirty boxing, as it will.
That was one of the bigger combinations he landed that night because he would do the jab. When he would hold his hands out like this, as you stated correctly, he would also his hook followed. So he'd throw a flicker jab out, hook to get in on the inside and try to get those clinches away on the neck. I think Stipe was smart in this fight and he realized he tried hard not to get caught in those exchanges where Daniel Cormier would hang onto his neck and throw those uppercuts as he did in the
Right.
first fight, and then when it came over. So I think that was very smart. Another thing that was Daniel Cormier was the overhands. He landed a lot of overhands in round one. If you think about it, if you look back at it, he was landing a lot. He was coming over the top, and again, he's holding your hands like this, and he's able to just go straight through the middle. Or it kind of, if you're walking in, he stands
Right.
still, or he already has. He just shoots out a jab behind it, and so I think that's one of the
Right.
best things about how he fights with bigger. I think because most fighters are bigger than him in terms of height, and so he's adapted that
Right.
very well. So I think his offense, honestly, his offense for taller fighters, a lot of people can learn from this. This could even probably be applied to maybe like a guy such as Israel Adesanya. So like Calvin Gastelum was able to land those jabs. This is what you're seeing. You throw the jab out and then it's landing. So I want to see if anyone else can implement that style. I think the other thing that Stipe did well was the body shot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that anyone's ever seen Daniel Cormier's body tested, except for John
Well, I
Jones.
was gonna get to that.
That second fight.
I was gonna get to that actually. I was gonna get to that actually.
Okay.
So one of the things, speaking about the defense of Daniel Cormier, yes, he likes to put his hands out and do that works for him. Where he gets on the inside, he'll hold your hands and he'll land the uppercut or he'll land a hook or whatever. This time it was more to his detriment, to where he couldn't stop doing it. So once the game plan was, first of all, the game plan for him apparently was to take him down, wrestle, which he did in the first
The
round.
game plan was to wrestle. Round one, executed perfectly.
But after that, he didn't stick to his wrestling. He also didn't stick to his leg kicks. He had a good leg kicks in the first round, which were landing, and then he pretty much stopped doing that in from second round and on. And then
I think you're right.
Go ahead.
You're right. He landed very good. And being a smaller fighter, you see that with smaller fighters versus longer, lankier fighters. You can land the calf kick a little bit easier. And Stipe was very hesitant to come over the top. So Cormier was landing. I believe he caught him to the left leg, and he kind of went sideways at one point because that's how he was hitting the leg so much. So I very much remember that from that side. So again.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about off air was the fact that was the Francis Ngannou fight that Stipe had. How much did it take out of him going towards the first fight, the Cormier versus Stipe fight the first time? And from what it seems like, it's quite possible that it took a lot out of him, because those same shots that DC was landing in the first fight didn't have the same effect or same pop that it had in this fight. Stipe was able to take a lot of the shots well, and once those attempts of DC holding the hands out, reaching for the hands and trying to go for the hook, go for an uppercut, dirty box with him in the clinch. Once that stopped working, he couldn't switch the game plan up. So he didn't rely on his wrestling. He didn't rely on going back to the leg. He just kept going to the well. And Stipe had the adjustment to not only get him on the outside when he breaks off the clinch, but also as he's reaching out for his hands, once he let go, goes left to the body over and over again in the fourth round. That's pretty much how he got it done.
I will say I don't disagree with what you're saying. Just so that way I can get it. You're saying that what did you originally say? I just want to make sure I backtrack on this right now. At the beginning of that, you touched on a point. I'm trying to find it.
Okay. What I was saying was DC's best weapon is his best striking weapon is to hold your hands, and he's so good at holding your hands and going for a jab, holding your hands going for an uppercut, holding your hands and going for a hook. Mm-hmm. He kept doing it, and it didn't have the same pop and effect that it had in the first fight.
So that's what I think. The first fight, because it was one round, it was just so close. And DC actually said this at the end of this fight. He said he expected the first fight to go like this did. He expected it to be a little bit more back and forth, and that's the more interesting part about this fight, because I think DC knew the holes of Stipe's game. I don't think he expected to knock him out the way he did. I think he was expecting to land, but he didn't expect to knock Stipe out what he did. I think he thought that maybe in the later rounds that was how he was going to catch him. But going to this fight, about, again, the Daniel Cormier, he's used to fighting these big, adapted to that. But when he game plan, you saw, because you get, this is, I think, a point on Joe Rogan makes when he talks about strikers on his, when you start touching people, you start loving that feeling of touching people, and then
Right.
you kind of forget about anything else. And so that's what you saw with DC. He forgot, but he realized how easy it was to hit Stipe, and I think in the long run. And what happened was when he slowed down
Yes.
by round 3, you saw that big, very big change in terms of a gas tank. He
Yeah.
didn't. It seemed like he was fading because his mouth was open, and then you see Stipe kind of get that life because Daniel Cormier let up. And then even in round 3, you saw these exchanges where Stipe would hold him against the cage, not in a clinch, maybe throw some shoulders, get that little dirty box in there. He was doing a lot of those. So you saw
Yeah.
that kind of played a very big effect into this too. I don't know. I think both of these men put on a stellar performance. I'll be honest with you, stellar. Because DC up until the third round was looking godly. He was looking godly. I don't know what it was. I was like, damn, son. But
I agree.
then
I
Stipe,
agree.
part of it, I don't want it bad enough.
I think I think when you look at the fight, and I have the stats here. When you look at the fight overall, let's go from round to round. So round 1, DC landed 37 of 46. Stipe landed 7 of 13. Round 2, DC landed 56 of 82. Stipe landed 46 of 82. Round 3, DC landed 57 to 86. Stipe landed 34 of 67. Round 4, through DC threw 31 to 49. Stipe threw 36 of 67. So going off that, DC was the more active fighter. He was the one pressing forward. He was the one initiating the
Landing,
exchanges.
he was getting the better of those exchanges.
But over time, going to the well with the same move, he stopped. He left the leg kicks behind. He didn't mix up his wrestling at all, which he could have done. He took down Stipe with pretty much with ease. He picked him up over his
Let's
back and
talk
slammed him
about
on the
that.
ground, which is
Can we talk
impressive.
about that? He
It was
picked
impressive. It
him
was
up,
impressive.
adjusted. The man adjusted.
Yes. Yes.
Let the blood pool let the blood pool to Stipe's head, which I thought was smart.
Right.
I thought that was very smart.
Yes.
Let that blood pool get you a little woozy and then drop you. Perfect. I think
Yes.
it was smart. Very smart. But he couldn't. Daniel Cormier, he kept a great pace. The issue was that because and that's not the pace we're used to him seeing. Did that? The question is whether or not that tired him out, and we could conclude it did. But again,
It did.
it just the body shots that he got, we haven't seen him tested to the body, and I think we just see a
We have
very big
actually.
game plan with
We have
the
actually.
second
So
Jones fight.
no. So there's two instances, and this is what made
Oh
me go back to the Anderson Silva fight.
yeah, then it's
Exactly.
still fight.
So
He
where
was getting
DC
TPK.
DC keeps his hands low. He'll stand with you and he'll walk in front of you and he'll forget his foot movement. He'll go pace to pace with you moving forward. The problem was with that he keeps his hands low. And it seems like he can hit you and he's so fast with his striking that sometimes he discredits the striking ability of his opponent. So when Stipe made adjustments, just like with Anderson Silva, going to the body. Same thing with John Jones, eventually catching him off guard with defense low. DC just has
Yeah,
those moments where he just has those brain freezes at points in his fights where he'll just go into automatic mode where he'll just gonna go forward and strike with you and just forget everything else.
I wonder if that's I credit that to him being such a great champion that he has
Yes,
the goal and the mindset of getting it done. But
right.
I wonder if in general, not just him, just in general, of having that mindset, can that cloud you sometimes? And
Yes,
and
yes.
I think we're that's what as MMA fans, I think the fans who really watch and analyze these fights, you can see that you can see that you have some of these champions who are and then get beat, and you're just like, wait, how did that happen? And it's because it's either or you did something, you made a mistake, and your opponent was able to capitalize on it, and they made the adjustment. And I think that's what Stipe showed he was able to do.
I think he also has the Cain Velasquez mentality, which is his teammate, of just pressing forward. and he presses forward, and sometimes he moves his head and head rolls with the punches and everything like that. But at the same time, he's keeping getting landed. So he's moving flat-footed, moving forward towards a bigger opponent who has knockout power with his hands down. And he's shoulder rolling, he's moving his head, but he's still getting clipped. And over the time, that takes more and more out of you.
I will say I will say of the exchanges, I think in the third round you started to see Stipe his jab came back. He
Yes,
definitely started
yes,
to have. It wasn't the jab that we're used to seeing, the traditional pop 1-2, or he kind of touches
right,
you like this and then it comes over.
right.
You didn't see that. You didn't see that till round 4. But what you did see was him starting to get the range of pushing, get him out of his face, and he does come flat-footed. But I think that's worked for him. It's kind of hard, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of hard to say that it's a bad thing or a good thing for DC and just in this situation because he's able to sit on his punches, and really that's kind of how he knocked Stipe out. If you think about it, he ducked under over the top like this. Why was he able to do that? Because he planted his feet. He could have overhand, but when he did it, he leaped like that. And I don't know. I think it's a hole that once exposed is bad, but if not exposed,
Yes.
very good because you can't see it.
Well, just think about it. When have you ever seen DC in a position where he had to make an adjustment in a fight where he's going to he's having success
And
with
that's the point
the
I'm trying.
reaching out with his hands and striking, and then it doesn't work, and he has to figure out something else. He doesn't really make
It's
adjustments in
true.
his fights.
But then again, when do you see DC lose besides John Jones? That's the other thing. DC doesn't lose
Exactly.
besides John Jones. But you know what was interesting? I don't know if you caught this in one of his I think the post fight interviews that happened yesterday. He talked about Gus and how he gassed out early and had to just go. Like he said, I just had to push.
Yes.
I was very. Oh man, I love it. That's one of my favorite fights in MMA. That was
Yes.
one of the
Yeah.
most interesting points that he brought up because he did it. We talked about that before. DC was tired, and that's when we thought Gustafsson was
Yeah.
winning some rounds because Gustafsson was able to get him. But DC pushed through, and the judges thought he won. So it's very interesting.
The interesting thing about the Gustafsson fight was I don't believe Gustafsson in that fight decided. I think it was more of a dog fight than a tactical fight. Like Stipe to me had a tactical approach in the third and fourth round to where you could see the adjustments made to where okay he's gonna grab my hands, fine, I'm gonna go to left to the body over and over and
I
over
think
again. It was beautiful.
say this: Stipe made. I think up in round 1 and 2, I think Stipe had a good game plan. Right. The problem with Stipe, you saw the hesitation in his jab. You saw the hesitation in hitting him. So round 1. I think whatever game plan he had, he kind of he couldn't start. He couldn't start. Round 2, when he started
Yeah.
getting opened up on, that's when he was like, okay, like I really got to kick it in. Now round 3
Yeah.
comes along. What I don't think the adjustments remember or end of that round. And that's the reason why is because he didn't start to establish that jab or start to really trade with Daniel Cormier and push him against the cage until halfway into that round. I think round 4 was when you saw that adjustment made because I think he went back to his corner and was like, "Hey, I think he asked. I think he asked either on the third or fourth round, am I winning?"
Who
Did you hear
DC?
an answer? Was it DC that asked it, or was it Stipe?
DC acts that. DC acts,
Never
I
mind.
think,
I thought it was.
in the second round. The third round. The third round he asked
I,
him I won.
that's when I was like, So now he's a little worried because he knows he was getting tagged in that match. He knows he was getting tagged in that
Yes.
round. And then the fourth round, when I saw the first body shot, I was like, ooh, that looked like it hurt. And then I saw the next body, I was like, oh my god, now he's landing. And it was because he was slipping the right hand.
Right.
He realized the right hand was how he was. The right hand, he would come across with the right over the top, and that's what was catching Stipe. So Stipe slipped the right hand, body shot, caught him, brought him to the fence, 1-2, 1-2, set up the legendary tap left, tap jab, and then right overhand. Not right overhand, sorry, right straight. But
Yes.
it was interesting. I think that was a perfect game that shows Stipe's intellect and fight IQ. I think that's a perfect display. But I mean, up until that moment, the only thing Daniel Cormier did was fall in love with tapping this guy in the head. That was all. was he did anything too wrong. Should he have stayed wrestling? Yes, but tired. I don't think Daniel Cormier was losing. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think he was losing.
No, he on the judges' scorecard. He was up 3 rounds. For all judges, he was up 3 rounds. So it
Actually,
wasn't like he was losing the fight.
exactly.
If DC Stephen would have had need a knockout in order to fight in the first place.
Exactly, and that's the interesting part because this is it looked one-sided, but then when you kind of looked at the wear and tear on these heavyweights of what they were able to do to each
Yes,
other, the fourth round was like, okay, they're both tired. Let's see what happens now.
and I
Hey,
think I
see if they
texted.
make the correct adjustment.
Sorry about that. So I
No,
texted you between the fight in the third and between the Steve and DC fight. I think between the second and third fight. I mean third round. And I was
I
telling you
believe
that Miocic is starting to
it's
land
now.
on DC. He's starting to
I
land on
believe
DC, and the commentaries are not really talking
DC.
about
You
it.
said this is what you said. Stipe starting to hurt DC with those hooks, and I was like, yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
DC's getting. That's when you start to see the wear on DC. Round 3 is when you started to see DC's face change because up until then he
Yes.
was just sweating, and that was a. And then you saw the bumps and bruises, and then you saw the by round 4 you're like, oh wow. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Once in the third round when I started. But
No, finish that because I think we're probably
no, so
good.
again, sorry, audience, is a lagging issue to where we can hear each other on a delay. So that's the issue we're having here in terms of just getting the timing down. So with DC in the third round, the commentators started talking about the pressure of DC and him moving forward and landing on Stipe. And my takeaway from that was, well, where's the takeaway from the same strikes that DC was landing in the first fight were not having the effect of Stipe? And Stipe was eating them shots well. So I think the confidence of Stipe rose in the third round. So he's like, oh, I'm taking these shots and I'm landing on DC now. DC's coming in flat-footed, walking towards me. He's not going to be able to take those shots. And lo and behold, later on, he's hitting him up in the third round, and in the fourth round makes the adjustment with again, grabbing the hands, left to the body at the breakaway. Just over and over again. And you just see the thing about DC at heavyweight we had was we thought there was so much power at heavyweight that, he's going to be formidable. And it maybe still be the case. But I think a large part of why that knockout happened in the first fight, one because DC was a mastermind of going in the clinch and going with that overright. I also think Francis Ngannou fight played a big factor. I think Stipe came back way too soon fighting DC.
Here's I just want to know the time frame.
Yeah.
Did you look that up? I want to know the time frame of the fight because
So
I just want to know how much longer it was after the Ngannou fight. Because the Ngannou fight, he took some hits. He took some
took a lot of
heavy hits.
he took a lot of hits. A lot of
Took
hits.
a
And when you
lot.
look on hindsight is 2020. Those hits knock out anybody in the heavyweight division.
True.
9 times out of 10. And Stipe is that one person that he landed all those strikes against and didn't get knocked out. That fight happened, I believe, in January of the first of the year because DC and Stipe was on the same card. They fought DC fought Ozdemir and then Stipe fought Ngannou. And then in August, that's when the fight happened. So it was pretty close to each other, relatively close. Especially when you go into training camp as well.
It was January 20 because you're right. That was UFC
Yes.
220, and
Yes,
it was July 7th.
yeah, that's pretty close. That's pretty close when you think about you're getting back to training camp. That is significantly close.
My only thing is I'd have to see the suspension on Stipe because the suspension is very. You're right. I think that's a long time. That's a long time. If this was like a 18-day suspension, that's like 18 days for guys who knock people out. They're like, all right, you're not hurt. So just 18 days, and you'll be fine unless the UFC permits it. But I think Stipe's suspension was over a month. I'm not mistaken. I don't think it was right away.
And then also think about the training camps and the effects that must have had. Like that Francis Ngannou fight, looking back on it, that's something that Stephen doesn't get enough credit for. To be able to defeat Ngannou like he did is impressive.
You know what it is? You know what it is, Tyriece? And here's the thing. Because it was so long ago and it's current now thing, I think that's what people tend to forget is the amount of competition that Stipe has faced. And I mean, Ngannou was probably the hardest hitter he's ever fought, and probably at the time one of the best heavyweights, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken. But
yeah,
I think you forget that because this Stipe fight, this Stipe DC fight took so long to rematch, one, and it kind of took a little bit, and we didn't even expect it in the first place. We didn't
yeah,
expect it for ET to go down in the first place because we know everyone thought Brock was coming back, so we were like, wait,
yeah.
what? So that's one of the bigger issues with this is that because we forgot fight with DC versus Stipe one ended in a knockout, no one saw that happening, and it's just the way it unrolled now is like, okay, now this makes sense. Stipe's having these wars, just wars. Point is, I
Yeah.
agree. I'm looking up the medical suspensions now, and I believe it's not telling me how long Miocic was suspended, but Francis is interesting,
Interesting. Which is
very
interesting. Yeah.
interesting.
Uh, and then also to speak about the power of DC into this fight. DC landed 89 strikes to the head. He had
Yeah,
181 significant strikes more than Stipe. DC had 181. Stipe had 123. DC had 89% strikes landed to the head. Stipe had about 69. So DC was hitting him a lot, but
and
the
again,
power
he
was
take
not there, and Stipe ate him well.
what we saw with DC at heavyweight because we knew he'd have the power back, but we never expected him to have the one punch power. But
Right.
we expect power in if he were to throw volume. If he were to catch you, we knew that Stipe in the first match. But I think in this match, Stipe was prepared he was prepared to take the shots, and that's what enabled him to go to the fourth round. I think that's what happened. Now the takedown, I don't think he expected that right away. I don't think Stipe saw
Yeah.
that coming. Uh, definitely hurt him and definitely tired him out a lot quicker than he wanted to be because I believe without that takedown, I think this would have been a little bit different. I really do think this fight would have been a little bit different. That takedown is what really got Stipe. That because I believe takedowns for a guy like Cormier is a heavy guy, but a takedown for Cormier who's been wrestling all his life, it doesn't require the same amount of energy. It just truly doesn't.
So let me ask you this: where does DC and Stipe go from here?
Well, we're not getting John Jones. That's it. I think first and
I
foremost,
agree.
just in the interest of the fighters, everyone takes a good long 3 to 4 month break. When
I
everyone
agree.
needs a good 3 to 4 month break, this was a war. It wasn't easy for I TKO'd. The other took damage for 4 rounds. Should not have these guys almost. Now with DC has done it all. He has won chips at 2 different divisions. He has been he has fought everyone and has obliterated everybody in the 205 division except for John Jones. He has fought most of the heavyweights from the old days, cleared them out, fought Stipe Miocic, who is arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. Now, in terms of accomplishments, this man does not need to fight again. This man does truly not need to fight again. He does not.
I agree.
It is not a necessity for this man to fight again. In fact, I think the only thing he's fighting is either because he wants to run that, or he feels that he just wants to go out with a win. Do I blame him? I do not. I think getting knocked out was hard for him to swallow. And I think because he knew his coaches were telling him to wrestle and all that other stuff, he didn't. I think that's what's going to hurt the most about this. But if he walks away from the sport now at this very moment, I think that is more than fine. He's still on top, in my opinion. He's still on top because he's without a doubt one of the top five. Even with this loss, he's still. So I don't see this as an absolute loss for DC. Now I think retires. I think he weighs his options. He's 40 at the moment. I don't think he has another. I don't think he can keep going with these wars for forever. I don't think that. I don't think that's wise. Now, Stipe really makes sense is to run that Ngannou fight back. However, that fight can't happen anytime this fight can't happen this year. That fight has to happen next year. Or if that's the case, fight happens in December. It has to happen towards the end of this year. It just cannot. It truly cannot happen anytime soon. And Ngannou my match for Stipe and for DC, I think you should retire. What do you think?
Just by the way, hold on. Can you see the sweat that's pouring on my head right now? That's just cascading down here.
Brother,
I'm gonna need
towel. I almost want to get you paper towel over here.
I'm gonna have you talk for a couple of minutes, but I will say this: just speaking on DC and what's next for Stipe. I believe that you drinking water right in front of me. Great. So I believe that DC. I don't know where he goes from there. I don't think if he goes for a trilogy fight and he wins the title again. Okay, so you got what's next after that? You know, I honestly feel that DC
retire.
At this point in his career, retire. Like, are you gonna go for a title again? And defend it, and then
here's the thing.
And then the John Jones fight.
That's done. That's done. We don't need. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not at heavyweight. Jones has too much in front of him right now in terms of 205ers. I think that's the issue with that. Now, could the UFC do it? Of course, the UFC could be like, wait a minute, no one's fighting Jones until DC gets that last fight at heavyweight. However, with his last performance,
you're gonna talk. I'm gonna get papers out. All right, continue talking about.
Go
all right, hold it down for me.
I think the only logical thing for DC is for DC to simply retire, and it may be hard, but DC has nothing else left to prove with the UFC. He has nothing else to prove. He's a great dad. He's a great fighter, but I think now he should get back on. He should get into coaching and then coach AKA and being the head coach and things like that. I think he should really push for a lot with a lot of those younger fighters for their weight classes now, or the upcoming fighters. I should say, not all people are young, but I think that he should push for those new up and coming fighters in the UFC. Now, Stipe, the only fight that makes sense is Francis Ngannou. There's no one else in the UFC right now who one is probably and two who's on the UFC's radar as much as Francis Ngannou is. Coming off his last few victories, I believe Curtis Blades as well as Francis Ngannou, he beat Curtis Blades, and then he also beat Cain Velasquez. I mean, this guy is simply a machine. And so when it comes to the state of the heavyweight division, you have it, and you do have Verdun possibly a few months. Suggest is you give Ngannou his title shot by either the end of this year or the beginning of early next year, and see where it goes. Because you give the build. What I suggest is you can't have Stipe fight right away again. Stipe went straight into war with Daniel Cormier, took some heavy hits, give him time to recoup, push that fight for other fights at heavyweight. Build this division. Don't get just the two top people fighting each other back to back. Build up those two people. Build up those three people. Build up those four people. Build up that division. Build up that division so you get these string of people. Because even if Miocic retires, you still have the fighters for after he retires who are able to fight for the belt. So again, Stipe Miocic does not fight till either the end of this year or early next year, and then you have that fight against. If you want to have him fight someone else and gonna fight someone else before the belt, that's fine. But you need to build up that heavyweight division. And again, as for as for DC retires. I think that's the smartest choice. Not because he has nothing else left to do in MMA. He's accomplished all that he's won. He's a 2-division champion. He's not one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He's fought John Jones twice. He only has 3 major losses in MMA. 2 of which he's been knocked out, one of which he's been to decision. But of all the wins he has and the way he's beaten a lot of UFC veterans and champions, this man has nothing left to prove.
Dude, okay, so let me just put this in perspective. It's New York, and it's like extremely hot outside. And inside, and also through the heat as well. So I'm bald, so the sweat just cascades down. There's nothing stopping it.
It's rough.
So
Not gonna lie
I
to
got
you.
my water
Really
here.
rough.
Got my water here. Got paper towel. Got a fan somewhere close to me somewhere here, so we're good to go. We're good to go.
Good.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you're saying. I don't need to see DC's fight again. I think he pretty much established his career as a Hall of Famer. Obviously one of the greats of all time. But speaking of Stipe, I think Francis Ngannou is the way to go. Or if they want to do it, and I would not be mad at it at all. At MSG, if they want to push Stipe to do John Jones versus Stipe in MSG, or the December card, I would
I
not
think
be. I think
I
John
think
Jones,
December more is realistic. I think December's more realistic
and I think so.
than
I think so
November.
maybe too. I think so maybe too. But I know that as of right now, Amanda Nunes versus Jermaine Duraname is the headliner for the December card. So
Yep.
it makes me feel like the only timetable that John Jones will be able to fight would be November.
Or December. Those are the only two times. He's not fighting it sooner.
Because John Jones is the headliner. And he has nobody
Yeah.
really to face at 205 right now. Stipe could fight Ngannou, which would be the logical sense. But I think they want to get a big fight out of John Jones also. So I just think that fight also makes sense as well. You have Stipe versus John Jones on the table at heavyweight. John Jones has nobody to fight right now. Stipe beat the guy that John Jones beat as well. If Stipe could
Yeah.
beat John Jones, Stipe
Is
arguably
the
is the
greatest
greatest of all time.
of all time. He's the greatest. He is if he beats John Jones, he will be single-handedly the greatest UFC
Yes.
fighter of any decade. That's just how it is. That is just how it will. That's how it is and how it will be.
He would have beaten John Jones if he was to win, beat John Jones and beat Daniel Cormier, and have wins over Mark Hunt, Overeem, JBS, or Doom. That's a list. That's a Hall of Fame. That's a Hall of Fame
He
list.
beat the only ex-champ he hasn't beaten was Cain Velasquez. That's the only
But
ex-champ
when
he
you
hasn't
see how
beaten.
Cain Velasquez is now,
I'm not complaining. I'm not saying that. I don't think that fight's gonna happen. That fight's not gonna happen. Let's just go ahead and put that on the table. That fight's not
no,
gonna
not
happen.
at all.
Cain Velasquez signed to AAA Lucha Libre. That's not gonna
Yes,
happen.
and
But let that play into your mind.
all
Stipe
right.
has beaten every former champion. Every former champion. He has stopped every former champion, except for. Or did he just beat him by decision?
I think I gotta look at that, but I think he beat him by decision. But it was a
I think he
one-sided
beat.
beatdown.
I mean, like I said, Stipe is the greatest. He's the greatest heavyweight, and John Jones tweeted that last night. Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time.
I wonder if that was a little clue. I'm only speculating here, but I think that's the fact that makes sense for John Jones. I think John Jones versus Stipe at heavyweight is money.
Those are the only two fights that you can make. There's nothing else. There's nothing else.
Now, of course, you go Ngannou again because Ngannou deserves that fight. Ngannou deserves the heavyweight title fight one more time against Stipe. I think the first time he wasn't ready. I think this time around he's different than Ngannou. So that fight
I
makes
think
sense.
the Jones fight may happen is because if Stipe fights again and loses, you've missed out on a very big fight that you could have had. Why the Jones and Stipe fight can happen is because the UFC doesn't want to not have that fight. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fun.
UFC
I
UFC doesn't want to that fight so big that like if they were to actually just like they could do the Stipe versus Ngannou, which is fine. That should happen in my opinion.
right,
But
right.
because you have these two, and then you have the Stipe who just proved that he has the heart of a champion. Test it again. You have the narrative there. You have the narrative, and that's the thing about UFC. They're really good about making the narratives known in their fights.
Let me actually, before we leave off this topic, when do we see Stipe fight again?
Earliest this year, December. I mean, November is possible, but I really want to see the medical suspension first. I gotta see that. I want to see that before making a guess
Yeah.
because he also said he wants to take some time off too. He also said that. I mean, he said he wants to fight still, and he's gonna fight for a little bit longer. But I think time off was probably best. Earliest November, December. Realistically, if UFC can't pull that Jones or Ngannou fight between November, December, January, February.
My thoughts is with you as well. If they don't get the John Jones fight for November, which I think they may be aiming for, they're thinking about Kamaru Usman versus Covington later this year.
I think
But if they
that
if they
that
can't
has to be.
go ahead.
I think that Kamaru Usman has before this year's over. Kamaru Usman versus Kobe. That fight has to happen before this year is over. There's no way that fight doesn't happen before this year's over. I'm sorry, unless someone gets injured. I just don't see it. I like that fight has to happen this year.
I agree. And if they want, they would put John Jones in November. Again, John Jones the headliner. So John Jones on the undercard of Amanda Nunes doesn't seem likely. So my only thought would be in November. Yeah, I think John Jones would be a headliner in November, most likely. If Stephen can't pull that quick of a turnaround and that fight can come to fruition, I think you may get Stephen versus Ngannou maybe early next year.
Yeah, early next year. I think that's the best way to kick the year off. Because then you
Yeah,
have the time for the heavyweight division to build. You have that. You have from now heavyweight fights you could have between now and December. You first off, you have
yeah.
a great fight with Overeem and Justin Willis that was just announced. So like, and you can build it. I mean, the thing is, you could have Ngannou's ideal for him, but you can build that division. Stipe's not going to be fighting forever too. That's also another thing.
Also, Ngannou's not young either. So I mean, that fight has
He's
to
not.
happen. That fight has
Agreed.
to
That
happen.
fight has to
I
happen.
think if John Jones is not the next person, then I think Ngannou's the next person as well.
Ngannou is. Agreed.
Yeah.
Now, let's go to
Okay.
the next.
So we spent maybe about 47 minutes total on just one fight. So let's get the Pettis versus Nate Diaz, shall we? Nate Diaz defeats
Yes,
Anthony
sir.
Pettis 28-29, 27-30, 27-30 unanimous decision. What do you think about the fight?
Okay. Now, me and you talked about this fight, and we both know these fighters very well because these fighters were very, I would say, the hype of when we really started getting back onto when we started talking about UFC. He was at the height of maybe or reaching the height of his career because that's when he had beat Benson Henderson with an arm bar champion. Remember that? That was back
Right.
in
Yes.
circa 2012. Sorry, 2011. And then we know Diaz from. Now I told you this. My breakdown was this before. The best way to beat Pettis is to smother him, regardless of kicks or regardless of anything else. To walk forward on him, push him against the cage, and kind of initiate dirty boxing in the clinch. And that's how Rafael dos Anjos beat him. Now Diaz, I was very impressed. He did look tired at some of these moments. He again, I don't know if he's playing possum because you see him get these sparks of energy where he's able to tee off and just throw these hooks and haymakers off the cage. But when that's one of my bigger things, and the grappling exchanges too, those take a lot out of you. And he had the energy for that. But what I'm very was that first round where he was able to simply just throw and land because in some of those exchanges, Pettis was able to not make Diaz. Oh shit! Wait a minute. I didn't see that happening that way. I think it was a fantastic fight, but there's an ultimately going the way it did. What about you?
Okay, so let me read you the strikes landed per round. Okay, so first round, Diaz landed 22 of 42. Pettis landed 14 of 31. Okay, Diaz landed in the second round 54 of 100. Pettis landed 36 of 66. Third round, Diaz landed 38 of 59. Pettis landed 19 of 36. The strikes, these stats pretty much tell you. Sorry, the stats pretty much tell you that the overwhelming offense of Diaz just pushing forward and maybe not even landing the strikes, just reaching out, jab, 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 prodding, put him against the cage.
Prodding.
It just
It's the
worked to.
prodding. The prodding is one of the harder parts of fighting the Diaz brothers, and it's because they're
Yes.
jab, jab, jab. jab, and then the lean back. Their boxing is so technical. They don't
Yes.
hop in and out. They simply lean back or off the center line. They're slipping. And that you notice that he almost at one point, sorry to cut you off, but Pettis almost caught Nate Diaz
Yeah.
with a head kick. And it was literally the big toe. And that's how good his timing is. He's able to slip back or off the center line and then land a
Right.
1-2, and 1-2, and then follow up 2-2-2. It's just hard. It's hard to fight that volume. That kind of volume and output is not easy to deal with.
Now let me say this, right? So my thing about this fight and watching Diaz fight against Pettis was not necessarily he followed the Rafael dos Anjos game plan. It was more of just like he modernized his style a little bit. He was stance switching. You noticed that in the first round he was stance switching constantly, throwing Pettis off with those leg kicks. He couldn't really get the leg kicks off because he kept stance switching in front of him with the forward pressure. He also initiated the clinch, which is something that Diaz doesn't really do. He usually stands with you and straight with you on the outside. This time he initiated the clinch, smothered him, and took him down. Wearing on the gas tank of Pettis overall, and I thought the interesting part of the fight was them on the ground rolling with each other, and you can see even though Diaz was on top, Pettis was still able to hold his own on the ground as well. Scrambles was great. Diaz was not only going to the head, going to the body as well, moving forward. I think one thing that Diaz said was that he put so much energy into the first couple of rounds. He used the 5-round fights, so he put so much energy into the early rounds that he got a little tired.
He didn't get tired. You saw that. And so when he got on the ground, those exchanges in the jiu-jitsu and the grappling, don't get me wrong, he's tired, but I don't think they cost him as much as having to move around and make sure that you're reacting as quick as you need to. For him, at least. I think that's the game plan. I think that what he took from Rafael dos Anjos, so what most people know, is that you have to, if you're going to fight Anthony Pettis, you have to at least get him on the cage and kind of wear and do damage over time. You're not standing and banging with him. It may not end up being the only person I know who stunned and banged with him was Tony Ferguson the way he did.
Yeah.
Ferguson was able to get the better of those exchanges because Tony's honestly no one knows, and that's the thing. What I think you're right. He did not dos Anjos, but I think Rafael dos Anjos was one of the first people to expose that because before then you didn't see Pettis losing. You didn't see Pettis kind of would initiate these wrestling exchanges or would initiate these clinches. The clinches is where you hurt Pettis the most, what he noticed. And he implemented the clinch very smartly, and he was able to use the clinch to land knees, but not tie knees. He was able to tee off on him first, land these haymakers and hooks, and then, once he was hurt, hit the knees. And so that's one of the things.
My only thing with the RDA comparison is the fact that although Diaz initiated the clinches in some instances, it wasn't like he was taking Pettis down constantly. It wasn't like he was looking for a takedown. He was just standing in front of him and pressuring. It wasn't like he was looking for the clinch and going for a takedown and coming up top of him. It wasn't like he was doing that. He was pretty much just prodding, sticking with the jab, putting Pettis behind the fence so he couldn't get those leg kicks off. And a big component of that fight was checking the leg kicks early on.
He broke his foot. Well, he did. So he broke his foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he broke his foot early on in the match. I think that did play a different. Sure. And I think that played a big significant thing because Pettis wasn't able to land kicks, and we know Pettis' kick arsenal is amazing. Kicks from pretty much any spinning position, off the cage, whatever. I don't think it was necessarily the full game plan. Let me retract my statement. It wasn't the full game plan of Rafael dos Anjos because Rafael dos Anjos he was trying to take him down, do all those extra moves, but it's the pushing him against the cage and the clinch work that he was able to establish early on. That's what we saw in that Rafael dos Anjos fight. And then don't get me wrong, Rafael dos Anjos was getting tagged because Pettis is he can counter as well as he can stand and bang in front of you. But when it came to the clinch and wearing on him, that's where you saw Nate Diaz shining. And it was the poking and the prodding, and then like step back, boom, not step back, sorry, lean back, boom, 1-2, 1-2 to the body. You saw that, but it was that pressure and that clinch work that ultimately got Pettis. And then the ground exchanges where they were just a lot. Those were a lot. You would have
Yeah,
Pettis on top
yeah,
at one moment, then you would have him on top at one moment, then you would get awkward kind of guard. The situations were interesting, and then you had Anthony trying to come over the top and hit him, and he was landing to the body at some points, and then to the head. But then you also had Diaz on the bottom throwing elbows.
yeah. I thought Diaz did again. In this fight particularly, he showed his growth as a fighter. Not just standing and trading, not just looking for more of a boxing fight and an MMA fight. But he was looking for takedowns. He was stance switching. He was doing these technical moves that threw off Anthony Pettis, and then the checking the kick was genius, which we pretty much talk about.
Yes.
The thing about Nate Diaz is the fact that they don't check leg kicks. Lo and behold, in this fight, he
Nope.
checks the leg kick, and it
He
actually
did.
works for him.
And you know what's interesting? At the very first round, kicked in the first round. I got leg kick a few times.
Yes,
You heard mention the Josh Thompson fight, and that is the only other time Diaz
yes,
has ever been knocked out. Is because he stopped checking
yes.
head kicks. The leg kicks. He stopped checking them. Thompson went straight up with a roundhouse, caught him, knocked him, and finished him out. So, and that's a testament.
Yes.
We always knew that was one of his weaknesses, and able to capitalize on not having that. But also, at the end of the day, Pettis wasn't able to throw them because his foot was broken, and that's another big concern about this fight. Do you think now, with that being said, think is next for Diaz, and who do you think is next for Pettis? I'm interested to hear your thoughts because I know you're pretty good when it comes to the lower weight classes. You pretty much call these fights.
Well, I'm pretty good at all weight classes, honestly. We pretty much call a lot of the things we see before it happens.
Yeah, it's true. We do.
Some of it is just logical. Some of them is just like if you put two and two together and you just see where some fighters go, where the money may be. That's usually where UFC goes. It's not really that hard to gauge sometimes. But with Nate Diaz, you got to think about this fight as well. So the way the fight came together was the fact that Nate Diaz called Anthony Pettis people. They said they want to fight. Anthony Pettis said, "Yeah, that's how the fight was made." I think the same could be said about what he said after the post fight was calling out Jorge Masvidal. I think that's the fight where Jorge Masvidal people would want it, Nate Diaz people would want it, and that's how the fight gets together. I think one of the things that what you learned about this whole fight coming together was the fact that I wonder what the relationship with the UFC is. It seems like it's being mended now with Dana White coming out and saying that Nate Diaz is a needle mover, and maybe they'll get behind him even more now, which they should have probably done a long time ago. But that's neither here or there. I think with Nate Diaz wanting to fight the person that wants to fight him, and very little negotiations have to go involved with it, the better. I think when it gets to negotiations, sometimes that's where the problem will be happening. But if both sides want the fight, I think the UFC will do its best to make the fight. And Jorge Masvidal is hot as it could be right now.
Agreed.
Jorge Masvidal is ranked number 3 in the world right now. If Nate Diaz wants to fight him, I think Nate Diaz will be ranked after this week in the top 15. I mean, the top 5 or top 10 in this division. If Nate beats Masvidal, we may be talking about a title fight, and he arguably would have the right to a title fight.
Do you think the Nate fight happens before the Edwards fight?
Yes. Yes, I know. I think
only because of stock. Because of stock, you have Diaz, who's a more popular fighter. That's just it is what it is. It's a more exciting fight to make.
I think we talked about it.
Diaz. Good.
Yep. All right. Sorry. Again, the lagging. Still working with technical issues here with this new software, but it's working pretty fine. Being able to have the show. Yeah, I think the Leon Edwards fight. I think it just doesn't have that same attraction as the Nate Diaz and Masvidal fight. I think when you heard the crowd when Nate Diaz brought up Jorge Masvidal's name, you see Masvidal's just with the smile on his face and just you see that gleam in his eye. You know that's a money
He was
fight for
ready.
him.
He was ready. He wanted
Yeah,
that fight. He wanted that fight,
exactly.
and
And
so that's the interesting.
if both if both fighters want that fight, I think that fight gets done. And I think if the UFC wants to cash in on Masvidal's star power, rising star power, and cash in on Nate Diaz star power, I think
This is the moment.
that's the
Right now to capitalize because win or lose, you have either Masvidal as truly one of the number one contenders, maybe if you can call him the number one contender because you still have Edwards in that division and you have other guys, but you still have a star. You have a star that arguably after
right.
this fight could fight for the title, and Masvidal a star in Diaz, who after a 3-year layoff has finished or possibly have beaten two of the top guys at 170.
Let me actually
270. Give that man a shot. Why not? Look, he beat two of the top guys. What else is next?
let me ask you this. The controversial part about this whole entire fight, if that was fight was coming together, is that fight a main event of a pay per view, or is the traditional style of a title fight the main event of a pay per view more fitting?
As in, is the Nate Diaz versus Masvidal, should that be the main event for a title? Main event for what you're asking?
Not only a UFC card, but a pay per view. I think that's where it gets a little dicey. Where
No,
Nate Diaz
it's not.
wants.
And let me tell
Nate
you,
Diaz wants. Go ahead.
Nate Diaz, I, it's a main event. It's definitely a main event. That fight shouldn't be on prelims. That should be a main event fight. That is the main event of a fight night. Agreed. That is the main event for a fight night. Because of the stakes of this fight, you can build a card around that with a couple of other number one contenders or building up guys in any division you want. Now, when it comes to being one of the fights on actual, it's main event, but it's not co-main. It's not. It could be a co-main event, maybe, if you wanted to push it that hard, maybe. But that would be with the implication that whoever wins this fight, like, has, or that's like the only implication. I think this fight is a great fight, but I don't truly think it's the main event of a pay-per-view. I just don't see it as a main event of a pay-per-view. And how often do we see in this day of age with ESPN Plus? We don't see that too often. Like we used to see like Robbie Lawler versus even back in the day when they were on Fox. You saw Robbie Lawler versus Matt Brown, which was one of the highest fights because that was the number one contender fight. But that I believe was it on a UFC pay per view or was it on a Fox fight night? I think that was on a fight night.
Maybe on a fight night. Fight night maybe.
And that's a fight night is perfect for these kind of fights because they're not championship bouts. I think championship bouts belong all the time. So at this day of age, I think Demetrius Johnson is more better suited for a pay per view than anything if he were still in the UFC. I don't think he deserves to be put on like the undercard, not the undercard, sorry, but the non pay per view platform. And this is a little bit different with the pay per view points and the draw and all that. But I like the new system in which where we're not stacking title fights on fight nights. We're not doing that anymore. They're trying to stack as many cards and build these divisions before they put their title fights on pay-per-views. Correct. I think that's the trend of what they're trying to do.
Okay, so you said a lot in there.
It did.
You said a lot of interesting points. I disagree with you on several of those. Not all of them, but several of those. The Nate Diaz versus Masvidal fight on a fight night, that sounds good. However, what goes back to our early statements when we talked about this card itself, who brought more eyes to this fight card? Was it the co-main event or the main event? We both said the co-main event. So if Nate Diaz is bringing the money to the pay-per-view, Nate Diaz should get a piece of that pay-per-view.
I don't disagree with that.
Right. So unless they're willing to bring out the money for a fight night card, which historically I don't think they really do. You don't get points off. You don't get points off a fight night card really.
I don't. Well, with the new system, do you really get pay-per-view points in general? That's a bigger thing. You don't see
that's a
that.
bigger
That's
question.
another thing. That's a bigger question. We don't know that. You don't see these guys. You see these guys making big amounts of money, but you don't talk about the pay-per-view points anymore now with ESPN. And if we're talking about also have on a pay-per-view because then you could sell. However, because UFC doesn't seem to be following that model with ESPN, whether or not adding these guys to a fight night either builds the interest for a potential fight, a potential title fight, or adding them as the main event for a pay-per-view truly is the best thing for these guys.
Okay, so let's.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I talked already.
No, okay, so let's just say, for instance, that we are going to pay-per-view points. Let's say it's the old model, but on a subscription service, right? So, and we won't never see the records from it because it's behind a paywall and they keep that stuff to themselves. So we would never know how much did the pay-per-view buy. We wouldn't know all that stuff anymore. So let's just say they stay with the old. Let's say they stay with the old model, right? Nick Diaz deserves those points. He deserves the points off this pay-per-view, just off the fact of the eyes. The eyes were all on Nick Diaz versus Pettis. You look at the YouTube numbers for the countdowns. Nate Diaz has more views for his fight than DC had for his fight.
Yeah, agreed. I've seen it.
And then you talk about Mighty Mouse and him should have been on a pay-per-view instead of a fight night. Well, look at this. Mighty Mouse wasn't bringing the views that Nate Diaz was. Mighty Mouse was never bringing the views as one of the best champions. As a champion, he wasn't really bringing views in general.
No.
Not really the respect, but there wasn't much interest in his fights. There is interest in the Nate Diaz fight. So you can't put him on a fight night card because of the fact that he deserves the pay-per-view points off what he's doing with the card. He brought more attention to this card than DC did. Go on.
So let me say this. I said this fight should go on a fight night, but then the second point I brought up, or then I kind of talked about and piggybacked on, was that's fine if it's on a fight night card, but this is definitely the main event of a pay-per-view. This can be not the main event. This can be on the main event card of a pay-per-view. I just don't see it being the main. Yeah, they're stacking. It depends. And I don't see it can be on the main card. That's my point. I don't know about it being the main event yet. I just don't know. It could be co-main event. Surely could be co-main event, but I don't see it being the number one fight of that fight card. I just don't.
And that's what pretty much came under agreement.
Yeah. Wait. So are we agreeing on that? Or sorry, you're choppy with me, and I'm choppy with you. I'm sure. So that makes sense. So we agree that it's not the number one fight.
Yes, we agree that I'm hesitant to put it as the main event because it was it's not really a precedent because the Conor McGregor and Diaz fight, that was a non-title fight. So it has been done before. However, I don't know if Nate Diaz versus Masvidal should go over a title fight. If they weren't going to do a title fight on that card, it was just going to be Nate Diaz versus Pettis. Nate Diaz versus Masvidal. That's fine. But historically speaking, it's usually been title fights on a pay-per-view card.
And that was the point I was trying to make. I think we've come full circle, and I'm glad we see eye to eye on that. I think a newer model, because before they would do that. They would put a whole bunch of number one contenders or people who are fighting a title one card, and that's been done before. That's not an issue. But of how.
No. I'm saying as a main event.
I said that as well. Of a pay-per-view. My point that I'm trying to make after that is that we've seen that before, not in just ESPN era, but we've seen it where they've had number one contender fights on pay-per-views as co-main events and main events. But that was prior, and that age is no longer here. You don't have the same fighters that you have back then because these divisions are so diverse and so stacked, and anything can happen. And this is why you don't want to put that there. You always the trend that you've seen with UFC, as I stated before, the trend is to save that main event for a title, to save it possible. for a title fight. Now, could it happen where we see these guys who are not fighting for a title fight be the main event of a pay-per-view? Yes, possible. But the likelihood of that being chosen, I just see the UFC going with the title fight before they go with that. That's all. That's the second point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement that historically speaking, a title fight should mean more than a number one contender fight, right? I think if you put John Jones versus whoever, I think that goes before Nate Diaz versus Masvidal. I just think a title fight should have respect as the headliner. However, I also have to say Nate Diaz as a co-main event is going to be hard to sell after this fight because you see he's more of a draw than your champion.
It's also true.
So
It's also
like
true.
there may have been in the past where number one contender fights as a co-main event or the stacked cards with number one contender title implications involved. But when when one of your number one contenders are the biggest draw on that card, it changes everything.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's just changes. That can change the division.
So
That can change the state of UFC. 100% agree.
it just changes. It just changes who matters more. So if Nate Diaz matters more than Daniel Cormier like he did in this card, how do you not give Nate Diaz that voice on pay per view?
I'm not saying we don't. I'm not saying we don't. I just
Yeah.
and again, cards that you can't have a champion fight every. It's not going to happen. You cannot have a champion fight every card, every pay per view card. It's just the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. So which is why the Diaz thing can come. Diaz as a main event can possibly happen, but the likelihood of that happening is just I don't see that over if an available title fight is available. Is at the point that we're agreeing on. But again
I'll close.
last comments on the fight.
I'll close with this. Nate Diaz look impressive. I think if they're gonna do Nate Diaz versus Masvidal, it's not gonna be a main event of a pay per view. It has to be under another big name. So it has to be under either John Jones. John Jones. It has to be under maybe Khabib. But that's about it. After that, they're a main event card.
Maybe we get this in Madison Square Garden. Maybe we get this in.
Who knows? That'll be great. All right, so moving on to Yoel
Romero versus Paulo Costa.
All right, so Paulo Costa beats Yoel Romero 28-29, 28-29, 28-29 unanimous decision. How did you see the fight?
I thought Costa lost it, but as big as he is, he can come beat me up. He can do whatever he wants. That's fine. I did not have Costa winning that fight, and the reason why is because the first round, and I thought Costa had the first round because he edged him out with the body hits, and that's when I thought he had brought on the body hits more prominently, and that round for me because they both knocked each other down. They both had one knockdown each. The cage most of the time, right? The second round comes.
Yeah.
Yoel Romero sees that Paulo's. He's kind of hesitant when Yoel Romero throws these weird kind of feints and it's sideways, but then just like this and like doing all this other motion. And then when he has him on the cage, you notice the defense. The defense of Yoel Romero gets bumped. You see, he's taking these hits. He's covered up top, slipping out, but on the cage where there's minimal space. And that was one of the more impressive parts about that second round for me. And then the takedown.
Right.
Second round, in my opinion, he took him down with ease, and Costa got up. He took him down. He blasted the double leg, took him down, and would have been in a dominant position had there been one more second in the round. But ended the round with the takedown successfully, and that, in my opinion, he noticed that. He noticed that round was close, and then took him down, which again secured the round for me in my eyes for Yoel Romero. I would have gave that round a 10-9. Now the last round is where you saw Paulo Costa to start to tire. And there were moments where he was kind of just trailing after Yoel Romero, and Yoel Romero would be like, nope, come to the center of the octagon, let's do this. And they would get into these weird exchanges, but I thought Paulo Costa was getting tagged, in my opinion, he was getting tagged more, and Yoel Romero was getting the better of those exchanges. And so I had Yoel Romero winning by split decision. And so I was like, whoa, I don't know about that. I thought enough to secure that split decision victory. Now, was it a unanimous decision for Costa? Get out of here. There's no way in hell that was unanimous for Costa. I would have been okay with a split decision of this. You? What did you feel?
I think we are both in agreement that I thought Romero won, but then I also understand how Costa won. So let me read you the stats and tell you why. Okay. So let's go round for round. So first round, Costa had 37 strikes landed to Romero's 32. Costa had 37 strikes landed to Romero's 40. Third round, Costa had 44 strikes landed to Romero's 53.
I'm sorry,
Out of
what was the
those
last number you
strikes,
said? The last number? The last number for the third round?
so the third round, Costa had 44 strikes landed to Romero's 53. Right? So on paper, Romero landed more. Right? And he had the most significant strikes. He had 125 significant strikes to Costa's 118.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where it gets dicey. It's not the strikes that's landed; it was that was made. So out of Costa's 37 strikes, so out of Costa's strikes attempted in the first round, the 37 he attempted 69 compared to Romero 69. All right, so they're even. Second round, Costa he had 37 strikes landed. He attempted 71 strikes. Romero 40, he attempted 91. Costa 44 strikes landed. He attempted 73. Romero attempted 124. So here's my thing with this fight, right? It gets dicey because Romero was the more active fighter, even though he was being pushed back. Costa was moving forward. So I think the illusion was the fact that Costa was moving forward. That means he was landing more, which in fact, no, it was Romero that was landing more. But the illusion of Costa moving forward would sway the judge's decision. You get what I'm saying?
This is with the new rules in state, forward the big benefactors of how determine. But if you look, you have to look at the fight as a whole. Whereas the judges don't even see that. The judges are just basing on what they're seeing. So the judges, if they see Costa pushing forward, you have to look at what Yoel Romero's getting tagged with. Because at the same time that Yoel Romero's getting tagged, he's defending himself. One or two might get through, don't get me wrong, but Costa's throwing these big gaping hooks. Defend. What are you going to do? Laughing at the guy, sticking his tongue out the guy times too. And so it's interesting that they didn't take that into play. And I wonder if the knee to the groin, I wonder if it was trying to either slow down things and like take his time to breathe and get it back, or if they said, well, maybe he did get hit in the crotch and maybe that's something else. I wonder how that played an effect to any of the judge's decision.
You also got to take into effect, and I texted you about this. What about the leg kicks that Romero landed? Was that as unimportant than the body shots that Costa was landing?
I think Costa, after the first round, I think he picked some body shots in the third round, but after the first round, he stopped throwing. Costa lost the second round for fact. I don't think he won that round.
Yes.
I don't think he, with the takedown secured, I think that should have guaranteed the fight for one round. And then the last round, there were points where Yoel Romero probably could have finished him if he really had the energy to. Probably, I don't know how tired the guy was, but you had the points where even though he was moving forward, he was getting pushed back into the cage. And Yo Romero was telling him, "Nope, come here, let's go to the middle." So I'm just a little. The judges scored this because I'm really interested to understand what their criteria of the moving forward and the forward pressure had to do with the ultimate outcome of Borrachina winning this by unanimous decision when the fight and was so as close as it was. I don't think anyone was winning this unanimously. Even if, let's say, objectively, if you weren't even a fight fan, you would see that this fight was so back and forth, it was crazy.
Well, it wasn't like this fight was blown out the water.
What do you mean?
It wasn't like it was a 37. It wasn't like it was a 30-27 fight. It was 28-29 across the board. So it was a close unanimous decision. But also,
been,
I'm pretty sure
Tyriece, we both know this shouldn't have been unanimous. We both know if Costa won by split, that's acceptable. Unanimous, that means he won every single round. Even the round in, and even on fight metrics, you have him losing rounds based on strikes. Come on, man.
So again, my understanding, now that I look at the stats, I think what got their attention was even though pressure. Romero was late, yes, the forward pressure, and the look of Costa moving forward and landing and throwing some shots was more impressive than Romero moving backwards, maybe going for a half-ass spinning back fist, or the leg kicks. There really wasn't looked at a certain way more than the body shots. I think the forward pressure of Costa was more impressive to the judges than the defense of Romero.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, he was walking. Borrachina was walking through. He was walking through a lot of bad hits. I give him that. The man's tough, but I just don't think. I don't think he won that fight. But it is what it is.
I don't think so either.
Do you think Yo Romero will contest this loss?
No.
Because we've seen this with him, and you see this with close decisions with him, such as the Robert Whittaker fight, when it's just so close that it's just so. It's just interesting that he gets into these exchanges and he fights these fights where, even though he's doing the damage that he needs to be doing, it just seems like the other guy is either outworking him or that the other guy's doing more. And we just and this is the second time this has happened now. So where do you think Yo Romero goes?
I think Yo Romero. I think he's still in great shape. I think we both said he should have won this fight, but he didn't. I think if you're Yo Romero fan, you look at this fight and say, okay, he's older, but he still beat a lot of the young fighters in this game, and he still fights at a high level. So maybe he goes to light heavyweight. Maybe he tries his hand at that. Maybe he talked about that before. You see a lot of the middleweights that can't really fight for a title anymore go for the light heavyweight light heavyweight division. So
there's nothing wrong with going up.
So that very well may be the route he goes. But speaking of Costa's number one contender, right? After Israel and Whittaker.
He just beat the number 2 man.
Yeah.
He just beat the number 2 man. So if I'm him, I wait out, see how that fight goes in October. Maybe you get your title
next year.
Maybe October is kind of, what is it? October 16th? The fight card is early. It's early October, though, right? Yeah. So depending on how that fight goes, he could be fighting at the end of this year, or I call around February.
No.
I think so.
No. I see that Whittaker and Adesanya. The winner of that is probably not going to fight until maybe the spring of next year. The earliest.
That's fair. I don't know. I see that fight happening around February or March. I will say that. I see definitely around February or March.
Possible.
I could be wrong. I call March. I'm going to stick to a month. I call March.
Costa beats Romero by decision. All right.
Yep.
Let's speak briefly on the Sadiq Youssef fight. You've seen the fight. Tell me what you see.
First round, very interesting. Youssef very jacked for 145, and Benitez is fighting out of AKA, which surprised me. Javier Mendez was his coach. I didn't know who his
Right.
fight team was. So I was very interested to see that. And then so the first round starts off with Youssef walking forward, planting his feet, able to counter at the right moments, able to land. But then there's a moment where Benitez hits and stumbles. It was like, whoa! Now it's a just it was at first just Youssef just clipping him, all right, backing him up, and then you saw Benitez kind of clip him a few times and land some great shots. Ultimately, ended with Youssef knocking him down, and it was on the money, and it was interesting. Great fight. Didn't make it out of the first round, but this kid Youssef has the power and the talent to go. I think you give him after this
Yeah.
fight. You give him a top. I don't think he's ranked yet. I don't think he's ranked, if I'm correct.
No. He's not.
I give him a top 15 opponent because this guy he's from Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. This is I think his second or third fight in the UFC. Star, but give him the talent. Give him now that top 15 talent pool and see how he does.
He's definitely a prospect at featherweight division, and one of those fighters out of Nigeria who are coming in strong in the UFC and making a name for themselves. Okay, so Derek Brunson beats Ian Heinisch unanimous decision. 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. What can you say about that fight?
Ian Heinisch. First off, the guy is actually his striking is a lot more than it was. His I mean I never watched the guy, so not to say that I didn't think he was not good, but his striking impressed me particularly because he's able to follow up on the same side, which is very hard to do. By that I mean he's able to throw a jab and then switch and automatically hit a high left kick. There's very few guys in UFC you see who utilize the smaller guys. With bigger guys, you don't. It does require a lot of energy and really Thompson. You see that with guys like one of the big middleweights who does it, who used to be a welterweight, was Bobby Knuckles. He does it himself. And then for who don't know who Bobby Knuckles is, it's Robert Whitaker. He's able to follow up with the same side. Brian Stan made a comment of that. It's not easy. It's not a very hard. It's not a very easy talent to do. But Ian Heinisch did that in the very first round, and he ended up catching Derek Brunson with a high left kick that kind of hit him on the top part of his. And then you thought Brunson went out, but Brunson immediately shot for a takedown, didn't get it, but was able to recover. And then from there, you saw him finish, and then ultimately secure the unanimous victory. Very smart plan from Brunson. The one thing I would love to see from Brunson is improve his boxing, because there were moments where he could have probably finished Heinisch, just based on how he was striking with him. I wanted to see, it was a little bit more wild. I wanted to see him body hits and things like that, but very great win from Brunson. He's not an easy opponent for those who think he is. For strikers, he's able to neutralize them. This is he's been able to beat, because you saw his highlight and he showed him knocking out Lyoto Machida, which I didn't think was going to happen at the moment. So I don't know. Great fight. Good.
No, I was gonna say that's 2 fights in a row for Derek Brunson now in the UFC.
He's back on a win streak.
After that loss to I think it was Adesanya in New York. Yeah, this is his second fight where he's on a win streak. So it's good for him. All right. So is there any fights you've noticed in the prelims that were worth mentioning?
Cody Sandhagen versus Rafael Assunção was a super technical fight. I mean, with Cody, the almost effortless. He kept outside. Rafael outside would try to circle out to the right, circle out to the left, switch to orthodox, in, out, feints, going back and forth. What I will say is impressive about Assunção is he noticed that Cody Sandhagen would throw these kind of hooks or like hook uppercut-esque like motions, and so what he would do, he would slip under and then go for. And that was one of the more impressive adjustments I saw Rafael Assunção make in round 2 and 3. I think with those I think he landed a takedown, and it got into this very interesting jiu-jitsu scramble where he would kind of be in like almost a capsize kind of motion, or would be in a triangle, but not you would have a Sunsao take him down, but Cody and again to a different position, get up. A Sunsao would take him down again. And it didn't slow Cody down, which was the impressive part. Cody had the cardio from round 1 as he did in round 3. You didn't see the hands go as much in this fight as you did with the grappling. I think that you saw Rafael Sunsao was able to use his grappling, but Cody had such a good knowledge of how to escape on certain things that he was able to reverse a lot of positions, and that's what's taking his game to the very next level. I see that. If I was Cody Sanhagen's corner, what I would focus on, because he's a 5'11" dude in a weight class for 135-pound guys, over 5'7". So what I would do is just take from when you see Rafael Sunsao taking your back or slipping under your punches, kind of and use that for the next few fights you're gonna have. That's the only kind of critique, or it's not even a critique. That's the only advice I could give. Other than that, he's kept his range, he kept his distance, utilized the jab. Footwork was great. I mean, there was nothing wrong with this. What did you in your playback of the fight? How did you feel?
I thought Corey Sanhagen won. I thought it was decisively.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
The thing about Corey Sanhagen is he's a jack of all trades, to where he can stand switch, he can strike with you, he can go to the ground with you, he can. He's not throwing a lot of power shots.
Nope.
He's not throwing a lot of power shots. He's more just touching you up, and he may just throw go upstairs and go downstairs. He may throw leg kicks. He may throw a flying knee like he did twice in that fight as well. So he can do almost everything, and he's so big for that division. He's going to be a problem for anybody in the bantamweight division.
Agreed. He's going to be a problem. I don't, and it's not even as if these other guys are just like slightly bigger than him. He has such the big advantage as a 5'11" dude in a weight class where the average probably maybe 6. So it's interesting.
Maybe again, 5'9", maybe.
At 135, I feel like. I feel like most 135, 5'7". I think Cody and Dominic were some of the taller 135ers, 5'8", and then Cody is 5'7". But most of the guys like Dominic, Uriah Faber.
I thought Aljo's pretty tall.
Aljo's 5'7" and 5'8". Let me look that up. You can talk. Sorry. Let me look that up.
I thought it was at least. I thought it maybe at least 5'8", 5'9".
He's about my height. I'm about 5'9".
Well, he was also. Were you taller than Ben Askren when we went to national?
He's 5'7". I was about the same height. As Ben Askren. I think Ben Askren's 5'10". I'm 5'9".
Okay.
Ben Askren. I thought he was taller, but he's wide. The issue with Ben Askren, he's wider than most people think.
Yeah.
That
still make it your year last year. We're gonna see Ben Askren to give him a
dude.
So give the backstory here. To give backstory here. No, hold on. To give backstory here, you literally left. It was in the seats, and then Ben Askren comes down the aisle. You literally jump over the seat to go take a picture with Ben Askren.
Yes, I did. Don't forget Neil Magny.
You have no shame, sir. You have no shame, sir.
Let me tell you of an Irishman who may be in trouble at the moment, but things before that moment where he hit somebody. Let me tell you something. The champ apologizes for absolutely fucking nothing. I would have jumped to do that picture again, and I don't want to disturb these guys in their life. I want to be respectful, but these. It was Neil Magny and Ben Askren and Matt Favola. Sorry, yes, Matt Favola. You had these guys who were willing to take pictures with the fans. A fan.
Oh shit, Matt!
If he had said no, I would.
Matt Favola was there, huh?
Matt Favola was
Watch
there. Out for this. Watch out for this man. That man.
He was pretty cool too.
He was pretty dangerous.
He was pretty cool too.
He's an upper coming on the 155 circuit. Watch out. Man,
he was actually pretty cool too.
He was a good guy. Very good guy. Fought a very solid fight.
He's a good guy.
Back to this guy. Fair Island. Nice guy.
Yeah, very good guy.
The fight card. I think these fights, I thought this was a very great fight. were great. The fight card was amazing. I thought it projected it let out some future prospects for UFC to kind of push to the next level, but it also cemented champions such as Stipe Miocic. So I think from learning from this card, what you great is stacking these pay-per-views. You're not having these gaps where it's like, I kind of don't want to watch these fights. Most people don't always tune into the prelims, which is understandable.
Oh, yes, you did. You 100% did just recently. Do we not just
said
Liz Carmouche versus? I mean, Shevchenko versus Liz Carmouche.
No, I said I'm talking about on a pay-per-view. Most people don't tune into the prelim. Yeah, oh, you're jumping the gun there, brother. Let me finish my thought.
Events in general. Sorry.
I was going there. No, I said most people don't. What you're seeing on these prelims are these really good fights. They're making these really good fight matches on the prelims. You had this guy fight someone at catchweight where he weighed in at 140 something and the other guy weighed at 160. And it was such a great fight because he was the smaller fighter. Kenny, I think his last name is Kenny versus Bermudez. Kenny versus Bermudez. You make the adjustments as a guy who moved up to 135 from flyweight. And so that's what I think that's what's working, in my opinion, for you. You're a fan of UFC and you're a fan of fighters. Really good prelim fights as well as good main event cards. That's just the point I'm trying to make. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm just saying that the prelims are tuning in to watch just as much as the main event card. That's the point. Not that we're not getting good That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you also got in the prelim main event, you got Worthy, Kama Worthy. Kama Worthy versus Devontae Smith, where Kama Worthy comes in on 4 days' notice and knocks out Smith as a huge underdog in this fight card.
Not only made weight because he was going to make weight, but fought the guy on one of his former training partners on 4 days' notice. And listen, that's a young man. He gonna be good at this money. And I felt that.
Yeah.
I felt that. Do your thing. Do your thing. That's all I'm saying is that with the new model, not to say that, but people weren't paying attention to the prelims before, but with these prelims are just as starting to get better, and they at some point will be just as good as the main event card. That's it.
I agree. All right, sir. Anything else you want to say regarding UFC 241?
No, great card. Stipe Miocic, heart of a champion. I just want to say when we decided to pick, I did pick 2 out of the last night. I did pick 2 out of 3 that were right. And I just want to go ahead and rub that in your face. That is all.
Listen, man, we can't always get them all the time. I've been busy, so I may have said 1 or 2 things wrong every now and then. But you know what? You win. You got this.
Remember, there was a point where you called, I think, about good 3 fights in a row, and I was like, yo, I can't lose to this man again, son. I can't lose to this man again. You called 3 fight cards in a row exactly right, and I was like, Good.
Sidebar, since we're still on here, are you watching the Nurmagomedov versus Poirier fight next month?
Well, it's on a Saturday, correct?
Yes, it's on Saturday at 2:00, actually.
We'll be watching. I thought it was on like a Friday because of like a time difference, but I will 100% be watching it. I will 100% be watching that fight card. And that day will have to be moved till the night. That was all. The night or the early morning, because I will not be missing that card. I will not. I refuse to miss that card.
They just had to do it in Abu Dhabi. They couldn't do it in Las Vegas. They couldn't do it anywhere else. They got to do it in Abu Dhabi. All right. Well,
the worst part about this is
on a Saturday.
School at 2:00 on a Saturday. That's why I'll just be in school doing it. But yeah. This was a good fight card. I think we agreed on a lot of points, and this was great. This new app is it's a little buggy, but I think it's not terrible. It's been working for us.
So. Yeah, and you also got to get your laptop fixed. You're doing this impressively. You're doing this on your phone, which again you're coming in clear. Little laggy at times, but I mean,
but
well,
clear
for the
enough.
most part, this StreamYard it worked pretty well.
All right,
Do you agree?
I do agree.
Okay. Again, the lagging issues will never fail.
Well, like
All right, man. This is our
I didn't
first
get that
show.
question too late. Yeah, a little
This
rusty,
is
but
our first
we're
show.
getting better.
Um, we're getting better. Hopefully we do one or two of these a week. Hopefully, maybe we can get some guests on here as well. But again, not a bad first show, and not a bad
Not a
fight card.
bad show at all. Not at all. All
So
right.
in the future, please share this link with your friends, your family, your next door neighbor, whoever you need to. Please share this link. Please comment on our YouTube channel as well. And we hope to deliver as as much, as not better, content like this every now and then. We may have some off
All right.
days, but we're gonna do our best to deliver as the best content.
Listen, no one's perfect. We're good. We're good. All
Yes,
right, man.
yes, yes, you are, sir. All right, man. Signing off. My name is Tyriece Simon.
I'm Eli.
The lag issues never fail, and this is MMA Renegade. Have a good one, guys.
Have a good